I'm 30 years old and so is my soon-to-be ex-wife. We first crossed paths when she relocated from the U.S. to work for an international company with a branch in Turkey, my home country. Our story began in a bar where we instantly connected. At that point, my marriage was going through a challenging phase, and I already had 2 children. The tension with my ex-wife stemmed from the fact that her family and I never quite got along. Their wealthier background was a constant source of contention, as they believed I wasn't up to par for her. I tried relentlessly to convince my ex-wife to break free from her family's influence, but she remained steadfast, and eventually we reached a point where separation seemed inevitable. It was during this period of emotional turbulence that I crossed paths with the American girl. We clicked instantly, falling head over heels for each other. As her project in Turkey was set to conclude in a year, she proposed the idea of us moving to America together. The prospect of relocating to the U.S. excited me, but concerns about being separated from my children lingered. However, she reassured me that once I made the move, we could work on bringing them over as well. The plan sounded promising, and after 6 months of dating, we decided to take the next step by getting engaged. This not only solidified our commitment but also prompted us to start the paperwork process in anticipation of her eventual move. So, when she returned to the States, we embarked on a long-distance relationship while I eagerly awaited the approval of my visa. Over the course of that 1.5 years, FaceTime and sexting became our lifelines, with numerous exchange photos and her frequent visits whenever possible. Finally, earlier this year, the moment arrived. My visa was approved, and I could make the move to the USA to be with her. Maintaining communication with my ex-wife remained crucial, given that we shared children. I would FaceTime her regularly to stay connected with my kids. Upon arriving in the U.S., I moved into her house, and just a month later we decided to take the plunge and get married. It was something we had both desired for quite some time. Initially, everything was perfect. We were in that blissful honeymoon stage. However, a couple of months into our marriage, things took an unexpected turn. She began arriving home late from work, and while initially I dismissed it as the occasional overtime, her behavior started to raise concerns. She became distant, not cold, but noticeably distant. Every night after work, she complained of fatigue, headaches, and an overwhelming desire to sleep. Our intimate moments cooled down, and a sense of disconnect lingered. Simultaneously, she developed an unusual routine on weekends. Waking up early around 6-7 a.m. on a Saturday was something she never did before. I noticed her slipping out of bed cautiously, trying not to disturb me, only to settle on the living room couch, engrossed in her phone. On a few occasions, I was already awake, and when I approached her, she explained that she was feeling too hot in the bedroom and needed some air. However, every time she saw me, she swiftly blocked her phone or switched apps, particularly to TikTok. The secrecy and change in behavior raised an unsettling feeling within me. A growing suspicion crept over me that she was hiding something. Her constant checking of phone notifications became more pronounced, even in our shared moments. She wouldn't hide it, but the frequency and urgency were noticeable. Whenever her phone chimed, she would hurriedly say, "Sorry, I have to go to the bathroom," disappearing for a substantial 20 minutes. The pattern extended to long showers, both before work and at night. She began waking up earlier, seemingly to spend more time in the shower with her phone inside the bathroom. There were instances where she would discreetly get into the tub at night, almost as if she didn't want me to notice. The increasing secrecy around her phone and the prolonged periods in the bathroom heightened my sense of unease, leaving me grappling with the unsettling feeling that something was amiss. My suspicions, though lingering, were something I tried to dismiss as mere paranoia. However, one night, around 1 to 2 a.m., when sleep eluded me, I heard a noise and turned around to find her standing on her side of the bed, topless, furiously texting on her phone. As soon as she noticed my wakeful gaze, she appeared startled. Hastily, she tossed her phone onto the nightstand and crawled into bed with me without uttering a word. We fell asleep, or at least I did, leaving the unspoken tension hanging in the air. The abruptness of that moment only fueled my growing concern, pushing me to confront the mounting unease in our relationship. The next 2 days were restless as my mind couldn't shake off the events of that night. On the second night, at 1 a.m. on a Wednesday, she left her phone unattended on the nightstand when she went to the bathroom. As her phone buzzed, given the late hour and my persistent thoughts, I succumbed to the temptation and glanced at her phone. The message was from a guy she had never mentioned before, a colleague. It contained 2 attached images. Before I could fully comprehend the content, she returned, and I discreetly averted my eyes, leaving the nature of those images hanging in the air, intensifying the turmoil within me. Days later, unable to quell my growing suspicions, I succumbed to the urge to check her phone quickly. I navigated to her photo album and discovered some selfies and nude photos that I had never seen before. Given our history of exchanging intimate images during our long-distance phase, these seemed unfamiliar, recently taken and not part of our previous exchanges. My anxiety deepened as I stumbled upon the messages with the mysterious guy, revealing pictures taken in what appeared to be a hotel room with a picturesque view of the street. I couldn't delve further into the messages as she was on her way back, leaving me with a tumult of emotions and unanswered questions. The next day I was going to take a picture of us with her phone. The last picture she had on her gallery was a pic of her vagina recently shaved. The date said it was taken 10 min before. She was in the bathroom by then. I told her what was that and told me she was going to send it to me, but she forgot, even though I was right outside. Days later, I mustered the courage to confront her about the unsettling incident of her being topless and texting in the middle of the night. Her response was perplexing. She claimed not to remember the incident and attributed the late-night message from the unknown guy to him being on vacation in a different time zone. Despite her attempts at explanation, the signs of infidelity were unmistakable. The realization that she might have been cheating, possibly during my time in my home country, left me heartbroken. I questioned why she had brought me to the States if her love for me had waned. The confrontation backfired. She became defensive and angry, chastising me for checking her phone. Complicating matters, I was jobless and unable to work due to my immigration status, making me entirely dependent on her. The emotional turmoil and feelings of entrapment further complicated an already challenging situation. After the confrontation, a chilling transformation took over her demeanor. A side of her I had never witnessed surfaced. She became cold, prone to yelling, defensive, and seemingly always ready for a fight. The relationship that once thrived on connection and intimacy now echoed with tension and hostility. During one particularly heated argument, where I laid out the evidence of her infidelity, she countered with a threat. She warned that she could kick me out onto the street, and, as an additional blow, she wielded the power to have me deported to my home country. It was a stark and sobering moment, serving as a wake-up call that shattered the illusion of the honeymoon period. The harsh reality set in, forcing me to confront the disintegration of the relationship I had uprooted my life for. Facing the challenge of finding work, I decided to make use of her car and started driving for Uber when she was at work. This went on for about 2 months. However, instead of support, she began complaining about the mileage I was putting on her car. Frustrated by her lack of understanding, I suggested that she could finance a car for me so I could use it for Uber while paying for it, given my lack of credit and non-citizen status. Unfortunately, she refused to entertain the idea, leaving me feeling stranded and unsupported in my efforts to establish some financial stability. In a desperate attempt to secure funds, I reached out to my ex-wife, knowing that her connections could help me gather the necessary funds to add to my savings for purchasing a car. Upon explaining my situation, she decided to empty her savings and borrow from family and friends, displaying a generosity I hadn't expected. I made a promise to repay her as soon as possible. Once I bought the car, my wife's reaction was far from supportive. She viewed it as a betrayal, accusing me of still harboring feelings for my ex-wife. This unfounded accusation became a tool for her to hurl threats and suggest that I should return to my home country. The toxicity in our relationship deepened as she continued her clandestine relationship with another man. Then out of the blue, she demanded that I start paying rent since I was living in her house for free and driving for Uber. Despite sensing it was another attempt to provoke a fight, I agreed, aware that she had enough to cover the mortgage. I was willing to contribute, acknowledging the financial sacrifices she had made to bring me to the States. From that point onward, our marriage spiraled into a downward spiral. One night, after returning from driving for Uber, she accused me of cheating with my passengers and refused to let me into the house. Frustrated, I expressed my desire to pack my things and move out, but she blocked my access to the closet. In the ensuing struggle, I pushed her away and she fell, initiating a cascade of events. She began crying, and in a shocking turn of events, she called the police, falsely accusing me of beating her. Despite my protests and explanation that I had only pushed her away to retrieve my belongings, the police arrested me and took me to jail. I spent the night there, and upon my release, I discovered that she had vandalized my car. It felt like a living nightmare. Seeking guidance, I reached out to a fellow countryman living in the States who advised me to consult with an immigration lawyer to understand my situation. The ordeal had taken an alarming turn, and I needed legal guidance to navigate through the complexities of my predicament. Using the funds I had saved, originally meant for repaying my ex-wife for the car, I consulted with a lawyer who revealed that I could sue my wife for financial support in state court. It turns out that sponsors are liable until the sponsored immigrant is no longer a green card holder and has left the U.S. Armed with this knowledge, I took the money I had saved and initiated legal proceedings against my wife for financial support. The shock on her face was palpable when I served her with divorce paper and a lawsuit in state court. After consulting with her lawyer, she realized that her attempts to deceive and manipulate the situation had backfired. In a fit of anger and frustration, she called me, accusing me of ingratitude and claiming that I had used her to enter the U.S., questioning my love for her. This, despite the fact that she was the one who vandalized my car, called the police on me, lied to the police, and carried on an affair throughout most of my time in the U.S. The reality of the situation exposed her own misdeeds, painting a stark contrast to the narrative she had tried to create. During the divorce proceedings, her lawyer suggested a settlement, offering to buy me a new car and cut all contact. Despite the tempting offer, I rejected it. After winning the case, the court ruled that she owed me about $1,200 a month. While I wish things could have turned out differently and the marriage could have worked, the reality was she had turned hostile, seeking to destroy me. Despite the financial support granted by the court, I don't intend to continue taking her money indefinitely. Once I repay the loan to my ex-wife and repair my car, I might reconsider. The journey has been far from what I had envisioned, but my focus now is on rebuilding and moving forward after a tumultuous chapter